Absolutely. Okay, so judge adaptation, this is a kind of crazy thing for me to say, but being able to do this skill can actually be even more important than your arguments themselves, which is what this first sentence says. That's a big claim for me to make, to say, yeah, you might have the world's most perfect arguments, but if you can't adapt to your judge, you're cooked. So the idea here is when we change the way we debate based on our judge's experience. So it's important we know what types of judges you might get at the tournament. There are usually 3 different types. Debate has a trickle-down effect, okay? High schoolers judge middle schoolers. College and parents judge high schoolers. We know that we judge elementary, right? And so most of your judges will be high schoolers. Some of them will be better than others. Some of them will know more than others. And it does not matter your judge's experience level, because good debaters are able to win over anyone. Yeah. You might have a 9th grade judge. Yep, that is allowed. Just like we had some 7th graders who were judging like 5th graders. Yeah, that might happen. Yeah.
Is it like the mom judge thing?
Yeah, I'm getting there. So, high school debaters, couple of things that you might have to adapt to. High school debaters want to be treated like they are important without it being too like I'm not sucking up too much, right? So a little bit of like, you are a big deal. And also, they want to be entertained, because they are very used to listening to a bunch of very boring speeches. So if yours can be a little more lively and exciting and you seem like you care, which is what I've been saying over and over, that's going to be a big deal. And number 3, I would say probably, my guess is 70% of them do know some of the higher level strategies. And so you have to kind of pull out your fanciest tricks for high school judges, okay? Now, sometimes you'll get a coach. It's a little bit rare, but debate 2, raise your hand. Have any of you ever had a coach as a judge? It sometimes happens. So coaches help run the tournament, and if we don't have enough judges show up, then we try and pull coaches from their job to go judge. But when that happens, obviously coaches will know all the rules, so you can't like pull anything over on them, right? They know what they're doing, and they expect you to be extra nice and extra courteous as a way you would adapt to a coach as a judge. Yeah, yep, coaches in tab room and doing other things as well. Sometimes it's rare. This year we've been lucky we've had enough judges show up, but it might happen. We might not have enough judges show up, and then we have to pull other people. So there's the last type is what's called a mama judge, but it's important you know it's not just like a mom. It could be someone's aunt or their grandpa. But this happens when we have a severe lack of judges, and we have to just run into the cafeteria and be like, you're an adult, come with us, you're a judge now. And we give them kind of bare bones judge training. But I need to make it clear, I had a debater one year who walked in and was like, oh, are you a mama judge? Great, you don't know what you're doing. Like, why would you say that? It doesn't matter who your judge is, you should be really respectful. And the nicer way of saying mama judge is called a lay judge, but even then, you don't actually ask that, right? There are ways of trying to figure out what type of judge you have and what their experience is. And so judge adaptation and paradigm go hand in hand, right? Asking a judge what they want. If they're like, what's a paradigm? Immediately I know, oh, this might be a mama judge, even though I wouldn't say that. Right?
What I was going to add is, like one time I went around because it was a mama judge, right? Mm-hmm. But the other team kept using like all these fancy stuff, and we just have to like dumb down our research. Yeah, so mama judges, that's how you have to adapt. If it's like someone's grandpa who was nice enough to be like, yes, I will come help you judge, you have to dumb stuff down, slow it down, repeat stuff, and they will judge more on emotion than on evidence. So you do. Sometimes you have to like change what you're doing. Henry, what are you going to say?
Oh, should we not ask them anything like, is this your first time judging?
I would not. I think that's a little offensive. So instead, the first test is what's your paradigm, right? And if they look confused, then you define it for them. And if they're like, well, I don't know, that's how you're going to start figuring out. More than anything else, I might also try and be like, so were you a debater? Like, how many tournaments, like, have you been at yourself, right? Like, that would be a maybe better way of saying it. Yeah, it's a little more respectful. Yeah.
One time, I was in a room for debates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was on my phone while somebody else was going, and the judge yelled at me.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend not going on your phone.
Which I am going to talk about, and that is a very good point. Okay, so this was written by a coach who's been a coach for like 30 years, and they've got just a couple of little tips and tricks, because judge adaptation is not all one or the other. It's a lot of little things, so make sure phones are away and try and really listen, because honestly, this could be one of those make or break it things for you in debate of, I need to have some strategies of how I'm going to adapt. So judges are going to have lots of various backgrounds, y'all. You are not going to have perfect judges. You need to know that going into it. Some of your judges are going to be better than others, and it doesn't matter. I actually need to go back to the vocab chart for 1 second, because it's this extra examples bit right here. The best debaters know it's their job to win over their judge, no matter what. Most debaters will blame the judge when they lose, and that's not going to help you get any better. So for real, it's your brain basically trying to protect you, right? If you experience emotional pain, your brain is trying to protect you from that. So it's normal for debaters to be like, well, I lost because my judge stinks, or I lost because my judge didn't know this. But really, the Mount Jordan coach, the one who I like pretend beat him, I beat him with the giant team trophy, right? He was really good at stressing this. He would drill this into his kids. Guys, if you lost, it's because you didn't do something right. It does not matter. That the true test of a good debater is, can they win over any judge with any type of experience? And so it is a more mature way of responding to loss. But if you could be like, okay, well, that stinks. I wanted to win and I didn't. So instead, what could I have done differently? How could I have adapted? How am I going to make a different plan and change it a little bit for next time? Okay, so back to this little article, because we know we're going to have lots of different judges, Lily, with lots of different experience. Some are champions, some of them know nothing. And if you want to be successful, you have to be prepared to debate in front of all of them and try and change your strategy so that they get what they want to hear. Often, adapting to a judge can be just as important as your arguments. So, number 1, demeanor. This is, what message am I sending with my body language? So lots of little things. Number 1, cool, calm, and collected. That's the number 1 idea. Because if you look nervous, the judge is going to assume 2 things. The judge, if you come in and you're like, oh, this is so freaky, right? If I'm showing you that I'm nervous, the judge is going to, number 1, think that you're unprepared, even if you are actually prepared, and you're going to seem less convincing. So you have to fake it. On the inside, you might be like, I got this, or on the outside, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm collected, I'm confident, and on the inside, you're like, I'm about to throw up, this is terrifying. But you're not going to show that, right? You're going to try and pretend you're very confident. Act like you own the joint. Confidence is just as much a part of debate as the arguments themselves, but be careful. There is a line between arrogance and confidence. We want to not come across as, I'm the best, you're just a peasant, you're lucky I'm in your presence, right? I've had that happen before, and I do think sometimes kids aren't aware of the vibe they're giving off. My mom scared all my high school friends because she was this New Yorker, and she's very intense. And she thinks she's being nice, but people think she's like in their face, like really intense. And that's just something she's battled with. So we're trying to like strike that balance between the two. This seems a little weird, but you should try and look like an honest person. That's maybe a strange thing to say, but you never really believe people who have shifty eyes or who act like they're getting away with something, right? Like they could do a little smirk, like, right? And so really and truly, you're trying to give this, you can trust me, I'm totally trustworthy, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing. So we've talked about dress, but it does matter, so a couple of little tips. Well, many debate teams have different dress policies. So you might go against a kid who's like in their pajamas, and don't let that freak you out. You're going to be more dressed up than the judge as well, and that's a little weird too. But it's a good idea to try and look professional. Little things like trying to wear clean clothing that maybe got ironed, trying to not wear stuff that's too baggy, stuff that like, yes, I actually planned this out beforehand. It's not too revealing. I combed my hair, I maybe actually took a shower, I maybe put on deodorant, like little things like that do actually make a difference, right? So trying to show, I'm here to win. Delivery, you're trying to give the judge what they want. Ask the judge what they're okay with or not before the round. It talks a lot about speed reading, so this is a little different for all of you. Oratory, there's not a lot that you can adapt to in the moment. But I would say, like, you guys tell me, is there anything big, like when you ask for a paradigm, is there anything big you've heard from judges? Enthusiasm, right? And then if you hear that, then you're like, okay, well, I have to go over the top now. Yeah. I would say to others, it's easier to adapt, like extemp. A judge, you might ask, like, how much research are you expecting that I have, right? And then try and make sure you have that. LD and policy, you definitely should ask. If you're planning on reading fast, ask if they're okay with that, and if not, you're going to have to slow it down. Policy, you might ask, are you a stock issues judge? Which means they're going to vote really who took down stock issues or not, versus are you just looking for really good plans? LD, you might ask, are you a framework judge? Or are you just going to be voting on contentions, which means how much do you expect I'm destroying their value or criterion versus am I just making sure I'm paying attention to the arguments, right? Like Henry and some of our varsity kids, you might have to ask questions about, is it okay if I have progressive things like a plan, stuff like that, yeah. So, yeah.
What do we do if they say no?
So good debaters, honestly, once you get to a certain level, especially I would say in policy and LD, if you have a very technical speech full of lots of debate terminology that a lay judge wouldn't understand, you should get to the point where you have written 2 speeches for AF and for NEG. One that's a very dumbed down, simplified version that's more emotional, and one that is a lot more technical. Like that is something that we will have time to do before the next tournament. Environment. This is so important because if you've ever been to a debate tournament, you know you could be debating anywhere from a closet to an auditorium. So it's really necessary to change your behavior according to the features of the room. You have to speak louder if it's a big room. And honestly, I really, really recommend speaking louder than you feel is normal or comfortable, because it is the #1 judge complaint that nobody speaks loud enough. So you should speak louder than you think you need to. But if it's a really small room, obviously talk a little bit quieter. And you should be mindful of things like noisy air conditioners. Sometimes there are loud crowds in the hallway, especially LD because it's flighted, right? You have flight A and flight B. And so just because some knucklehead is doing something dumb in the hall doesn't mean that you're allowed to get distracted by it every 2 seconds, right? You have to try and keep going even if things are going wrong around you. Also, let's see, make the room work for you. Don't assume you have to start speaking immediately, right? Like take a second, get settled in. The judge is going to ask you questions anyways before you start debating. So if you need to move a desk so that you have places to set your stuff up, if you need to like move yourself so that the judge is the focal point of the room, do that. But it really is, the tournaments are tough, especially nowadays. We have gotten so huge. Our tournaments, so many kids in our school district are doing debate that we have huge numbers. We have like 320 debaters, and that's not including all the parents and other people they're going to bring to watch. And so we're at Alta High School because we need every single room. But even then, we made the tournament map. We're barely going to fit. And so we have to use every single space. Some of them are weirder than others, and it's your job to like adapt no matter what, yeah. The Alta is one of the biggest, yeah. So that's why we're at a high school. The other tournaments, earlier this year, they were at Draper Park Medill. So now we're at a high school because now we have 60 Albion kids that add so that many more numbers, yeah. Not so far, but it is something we have started considering of what happens if we get any bigger than we currently are. So we are actively problem solving that, but we haven't got to that point yet, yeah. Yeah, and so, but sometimes schools aren't available, right? Like if they have too many things scheduled, it is always a battle trying to find a host to host us. Etiquette! So this is politeness. And this is so important, guys. Every judge hates mean debaters. And that's because most kids who are a debater had an opponent who was a jerk. And so, again, we use my mom as an example that, like, her face comes when she's thinking, she, like, is really intense. But on the inside, she's not mad. But you need to really ask yourself, what message am I giving off, right? I might think I'm being calm and assertive and confident, but it comes across as too mean, right? So don't be rude to your opponent. You're way more persuasive if you are professional and courteous. And if your opponent says something during their speech that you disagree with, you should not react. You're going to be a blank slate. In your brain, you could be like, well, that was dumb. But on your face, you're going to be like respectful and professional about it, right? Really important, if you start cleaning up your stuff early, it says this later, judges hate that. And like Jack said, so in oratory, if the judges expect that you are a professional, courteous audience member to the other kids who are performing before and after you, and if you're not, they might destroy you. They might take it out of your score. And same with everybody else, except because yours is really only like one at a time. But like LD and policy, if you're not actively paying attention, like I'm showing you, like, yep, I'm listening to what you're saying, even if it's not my turn to talk. And if you start cleaning your stuff up early, like if they have the last speech and you're finished, you start cleaning up early, judges hate that.
Do you flow, like if you're next, you
Flow all the way through to the end, because when you get your ballot, you want to be able to compare the feedback on the ballot to your flow so that I have a full record of everything so that I can make that comparison. Good question. And then the last part, this doesn't affect us that much, but different regions, especially if you do high school debate, different areas of the country will do debate slightly differently. Like California is known for being very progressive, right? Our LD assistant, Fiona, she has experienced this at high school tournaments where they are much more likely to spew and speed read. And that's less common in Utah circuit of debate. So the only time this might affect you guys in middle school is if you come to the state tournament, which you have to qualify for, right? Which, again, if you are thinking you want to be registered as varsity, let me know before the end of today. But state, we have teams come from all over the place. So we've had some from all the way up north. Even there was one year we had some from down in St. George. They bust all the way up here. And so you need to be aware that Canyons kind of runs debate in Utah. It's a combination of Lucas's dad helps Canyons a lot and got our program off and running, legit. And now that our program is off and running, we kind of, we're like debate in Utah in Canyons district. So we run things, but at the state tournament, you'll get kids from other districts who do things differently. And sometimes it's a little shocking where you're like, what? How did this kid make it to state and they don't even understand this basic thing? Or like one time in oratory, there was a kid who qualified for state, but their debate program was so small it was easy to qualify and they didn't have their speech memorized, so they were just reading it, right? So that does sometimes affect it when you get people coming from elsewhere. Yeah.
Because we're going to this first tournament, most of the debate fun kids are not to be varsity.
Correct, unless you tell me you want to, which means you have 2 chances to qualify for state and not just April.
Is April, are you able to that?
Correct. Everyone will be varsity at April.
And then also, when's the
State tournament is 1 week after the championship tournament. It is May 1st. So we have April 24th and then May 1st. It's a 1 week in between. Yeah.
Is that harder to qualify?
Yeah, you have to get a medal to qualify. So it is. And that's because not everyone deserves to qualify, right? It's supposed to be the best of the best. So I know that sounds harsh, but it's a game, right? Debate is a game and there's going to be winners and losers. Yeah. But hold on. Even if you lose in debate, you're still a better human, right? Like you have invaluable skills you're learning and it's okay, right? Not everyone can win. Yes.
For the state tournament,
Yep.
all the people from the entire state, people all the way.
I would say the farthest we ever get is the school that comes from Logan, and then there's a lot of like Salt Lake, and there's like Granite District and like schools in like West Jordan and South Jordan. But yeah, it's mostly like Metropolis that are coming, the people in downtown. So that being said, last thing for judge adaptation before we play a game to practice this. Number 1, I gave you a bunch of little details from the article. So you would pick one of those for the U-Try box. However, there's a second thing you need to add on your vocab chart today. The second sentence, I think, is really important. It says, judge adaptation applies to real life because. So Adam, I think there's probably like 12 right answers to this second sentence, but you need to not only do the U-Try box, but also think about this second sentence. Go.
Wait, does the NSDA points for this?
If you put them in. Because you are speaking in front of a judge, so yes.
I need 2 more.
Yeah. Hey, remind me when we're like halfway through the split, and I will come back over. Yeah, because that's what we're playing today. Yes. Okay, so you're thinking about your U-Try box and
Wait, do we do both?
yeah, you're doing the second sentence and no, just the U-Try box. U-Try box and second sentence, guys. Okay, and then let me hear a couple of let me hear a couple of your ideas. I'm most concerned about this one. I think there's like 12 right answers. Why does judge adaptation apply to real life? Adam, tell me one idea. Job interviews, for sure. You sometimes get somebody that you're interviewing with, they seem really friendly and nice, and sometimes they're just like, you can't read them at all. So I have to figure out, what do I do here, right? How do I adapt to this person? Yeah. Yeah, if I'm in a social situation where I don't know anyone, I all of a sudden have to adapt to that, right? What else? What are other times in life? A situation or a person specifically that I might have to adapt to, Lily? For sure. Being new to a school or being new to a job.
This is very, very specific, but if you're running for president, a lot of the time presidents don't support their own political.
That's true. Yeah, because they are trying to play the game of I want everyone to feel like I match up with their views. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And same, right? Like you have teachers that you might not get along with and others that you get along with easier, but it goes the same for teachers. Teachers also have to figure out how to adapt to lots of different types of students. What about bosses, guys? When I was in high school, I had a really weird job. I had worked at a bridal shop, and it was just accidentally, right? But my boss was really, honestly, one of the owners of the bridal shop was really mean. He honestly was just like could not handle any conflict at all and would freak out if anything went wrong. And he would scream and yell and was overly reactive. And for me, who's very much a people pleaser, I had a hard time with that. I learned how to deal with his anger and still be okay. But for a while, it was hard for me to figure that out. And even as an adult who I've been a teacher for this is like my 14th year, we are lucky at Albion. All of your teachers, we actually really do like each other. There are other schools where that doesn't happen. But, some of us are closer friends with others than other teachers. And sometimes when you are in a professional setting, and this is important, this is the real life skill, you are going to have people you disagree with. And just because your coworker isn't your best friend doesn't mean you're allowed to freak out at them and be rude, right? Because you have to remember, I'm still stuck with this person for a long time. So Braden, I have to think for the long haul, right? Just because this is temporarily an issue, I need to be able to resolve my differences, knowing that we're together for a long time. Okay, turn it in, everybody. Yeah.